This is Andy.
And this is Matt.
And you're listening to
The Hop Podcast with no name.
What a dumb name.
It's so stupid. This is our episode 3, our third recording of the Hop Community Podcast. And I am very, very honored to have Will and Robert from Olympic Steel joining. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
This is where you both say hi, guys, at the same time, and then no one gets the joke, right? So we are continuing the trend that we've sort of created, which is just hearing from you both what it's been like to get to the point where you're on a podcast about your hop journey. And so just giving us any background that you have would be great.
Okay. So our EHS vice president out of Ohio came to our entire EHS group about 2022 and asked for a division that would like to volunteer to look at this thing called HOP. And we absolutely said, yes, we're all in. We were very much a safety one type organization. My boss is a former Marine, so he's very much regimented. My background, I was in the military also, so a lot of the safety one stuff made sense at the time. And we brought Bob Edwards in to train our people on HOP, and it was very informative the way Bob presented everything. We did have some of our plant personnel in the meeting, and they were like, yeah, this all makes sense. But some of the managers were like, wow, this is really eye-opening. The 5 principles, the blue line, black line was really interesting. And we launched it, and we put a lot of emphasis on learning teams. And what I found was, well, we had a lot of people that sat through Bob's class and learned the fundamentals of HOP. It ended up being Will or I that was involved with the learning team because everybody else wasn't as engaged as we had hoped originally. So I implemented something called Learning from Normal Work. And the Learning from Normal Work is a program where all supervisors and managers are to set 30 minutes a week aside to go to a specified area, just observe normal work, ask good questions, and then once a month we would meet with our GM and our team and talk about what they learned, see if there's any actionable items we could take out of that, and then a lot of those moved to our continuous improvement board, which also helped to drive some really good engagement. At the end of the monthly meeting, we would then identify another area in the plant, and they would focus on that for the next month and then bring their findings to that meeting so we could engage more people. And it seems to be pretty successful.
That's awesome. And I feel like awesome such a seemingly weak word, but I mean, it went from, hey, we heard about it, so this is how we're actually doing it. And I have nothing but questions to ask about that. But Will, anything you want to jump in and add to what Robert mentioned?
I think it was a good overview. I think the feel in the room was very interesting as people were sort of getting their eyes opened as we were sitting through sort of the initial presentations. I thought it was kind of interesting coming at it from a continuous improvement lens, because it's so much of what was getting talked about there tied in so well with not necessarily the tools that are behind Lean, but the mentality behind it, the continuous learning, how to build a learning organization and get your team involved and all of those pieces. Like the places that do hop well probably also can do lean well and vice versa. The mentalities line up.
I think I just want to print out that sentence and like make that my banner on LinkedIn at this point, because it is so crucial what you just said. But I want to take us back because, Robert, your recap was perfect about we heard about it in 2022. Someone asked who wanted to try it. We raised our hands, and then you went in to say we had come from a safety one mindset, and knowing that you're from military, your boss from military. I imagine it was very regimented. There's procedures. We follow them. We follow the rules. We make sure we follow the rules. We hold each other accountable to following the rules. A bit of a push and pull and some tension there, right? So what about where you were in 2022 made you raise your hand to say, yes, we want to try it?
Well, we were still seeing quite a few recordable injuries. And it really didn't open my eyes until after we finished the training with Bob, because my background wasn't EHS. I'm the Operation Excellence Manager. Will's a project manager. Together, we made up the Continuous Improvement Operational Excellence Department. I kind of absorbed the EHS role. And when I did that, I found a lot of my counterparts would talk a lot about, well, we wrote them up, we did this, we did that. Mm-hmm. And as we worked through HOP, like Will had mentioned, there's very much a continuous improvement lens that marries up with HOP very well. And I found that as I started implementing the HOP mentality, my safety walks, because we oversee 2 plants, I could do a safety walk in 10 minutes. And I found that after I started implementing the HOP things, and it took some time, but now it takes me an hour to walk our plant. Because people are like, hey, come look at this, come do this. Again, the follow-up's very important. If you don't follow back up with people, the program doesn't work well.
That's helpful, because the change from 10 minutes to over an hour to do these walks, what did you individually have to change about what you were looking at or how you were engaging with the front line to make those walks so valuable? Because it sounds like we're talking about current state. You sort of changed the way you were doing walks, and now people want to bring everything to you, but something had to change to get that trust built, to get that desire to teach and learn and understand built. How did that happen?
So you started out where you were going out there to find people that were breaking safety rules, and you were going to very much take a safety one approach to that. And as we implemented HOP, now we started asking more questions, following back up with the people, telling them we want to hear about this stuff. And at first they're like, yeah, not sure. And as we started getting some momentum behind it, that's what really helped. Now, one of the challenges I'll say from the HOP lens is, once we implemented HOP, I do think we went too far the other way, where we weren't holding anybody accountable. Or not, accountable is not the right word, but we were not addressing the HR issues that would come up the way we had been. And we swung it too far the other way, so we did have to back that off slightly. I think we've got a good balance now. We just went, and again, I took down our days without a recordable injury board. However, we went 15 months at a division without an OSHA recordable that had never went 12 months before, while still improving our near miss reporting and POCIOCs that we're submitting. Our near misses continue to rise, which is encouraging, because people wouldn't, like Bob Edwards said, when nothing's happening in the plant, things are happening. It's just we don't know about them. And people are much more willing to bring things to our attention now.
And Rob, and sorry, Will, what about from your perspective, outside in, I guess, in a lot of ways, but are you also doing these walks, or where does this fall within your world?
So really, as a project manager, I sort of get the back end of it. one of the things I have definitely noticed is that we have throughout, I guess, all of the safety and operations infrastructure and everything, there's lots of ways to learn, right? There's audits and check sheets and safety walks and conversations and learning teams and all of these different ways to learn that bring up a bunch of stuff. And now somebody actually needs to pick that up and go make it happen. And so that's really how I've been involved in a lot of it. I definitely have helped with some of the learning teams, right? It's hard to design a new system or a new tool if you don't understand the context. But the implementation of, okay, we have these ideas. Now, how do we actually turn them into a reality, check and make sure that they work, run through that whole design and development process has been pretty key. Because that's part of what builds your buy-in with your team too, is that, hey, we did this thing, we learned a bunch of stuff. Now what happened? If we don't change anything, everyone's going to be over it in a month.
Gotcha. I mean, which honestly is where I hear a lot of the momentum slow down. Is we commit. There's a pretty robust way that's come out into the hop space of how to teach learning teams or operational learning. That's a pretty well established part at this point. There's books, there's podcasts, there's trainers that you can come in. But then you have to do something. Then like the learning stops, and now it's just a list of problem statements, and now we have to solution, ideate, and then do.
Yep.
And so what was it like to, I imagine you learned a lot from your first learning team until where you are now in terms of, yes, we got better at asking questions and learning about work and reality, but where have you gotten better? How have you gotten better at the latter stage and post-learning team?
I think there's definitely been a growth curve for us in realizing that the learning activities and the improvement activities, they're related, but they're not the same thing. So just learning isn't enough. We have to actually step in and do the improvements, and then being very realistic about what needs to happen. Not what can we do, not what could be better, but what do we need to get better to get to our goals? Again, this is bringing in some lean thinking, but if we came up with 15 ideas in a learning team, we need to do some very real prioritization and say, these two are fast and easy. Let's do them this week and be done with them and just knock it off the list. And then this other one thing is our big design project. There's 4 others on here that would be great, but we just don't have the resources to tackle them right now. So here's the one thing we're going to start working on to really make an impact here and fix a system that needs fixing.
Super sharp to be able to say we might have more desired solutions than we're able to get to, but we still have problems that need fixing. And so I'm going to be really particular here because I think this is something that gets lost a lot. Who owns that solution part? Who and I imagine it's probably multiple people. Who owns it? Who is like, I'm going to physically carry this across the line in terms of making sure it gets done?
That's a really good question. I think in the way our company and our team is set up, historically, it's been the continuous improvement department. A project manager that can say, okay, here's the initiatives we're working on. Here's the projects that somebody has to go research and find tools and get them quoted and buy stuff and test it and do all of those extra steps that take an idea into reality. That doesn't mean it has to be that way, but sure. I do think it needs that project, that improvement mindset needs some ownership and some space to be able to flourish. Because if somebody's got a job that's already filling up 38 of their 40 hours in a week, adding another project onto their plate is probably not going to be super successful. But it doesn't necessarily have to be a dedicated continuous improvement person. It's somebody that's interested and passionate about it that can pick it up and say, yep, I will see this through to completion because it's important to me and my team or where we need to get to.
That's helpful. Has this become prescribed? Have learning teams and their process become a prescribed behavior at this point? Or is it still some sort of subjective when we want to do it, if we choose to do it situation?
I think it's fairly subjective for our team still. So one of the things that I noticed coming out of learning teams and coming out of the Bob Edwards training is that the idea of, hey, I'm going to pull this group of 10 or 12 people off of the production floor for an hour to have a nice long conversation and really build safety and dig in. And then we're going to do it again tomorrow. Our production in a sort of fast-paced manufacturing environment, our production team is like, you cannot have that many people for that long. Yeah. That was a hard pass. So we had to do our operational learning in bite-sized pieces. We did a lot more, hey, can I have a 15-minute conversation with this one person on the floor, and then I'm going to go talk to this other person and get the whole story. And it might take me a little bit more time as I'm doing the learning, but it means that our machines can keep running while we do it. And because our sites are more centralized, I think that works well. I know some other industries, they've got teams out in the field. You really need to set aside a time to pull people together. It's a 3-minute walk for me to get out to any of our machines and have a conversation with someone.
This is music to my ears. I find that when I was, almost 5 years ago at this point, when I was talking to Andrea about joining and teaching this stuff, I remember being so caught off guard that it seemed at the time to be a prescribed, you need at least 90 minutes, 2 days in a row to get people together to do learning teams. And that was not from her, but that was sort of the way that industry was hearing it, I think. Mm-hmm. And when I hear someone say, no, Andrea describes it as form to leave form. Like, yes, if we don't know what we're doing and we want a place to try it, setting aside 90 minutes with people is a really great way to get better at operational learning. But then it should just be how we go and learn.
And I think all of the baselines for the learning team still need to be there. The psychological safety, the buy-in, the understanding that, when Robert goes out on a safety walk to talk to someone, he's there to learn, he's there to understand context, all of that stuff. That groundwork all has to be in place. And Robert, maybe you have some more context on that as you've done more of your safety walks. But if the baseline pieces for a learning team aren't in place, then the conversations you're not going to learn anything from the conversations. People are either not going to talk to you or they'll tell you what you want to hear.
Yep.
Correct. A big part of that is just gaining their trust, right? That was a huge part of it. Again, I think we're relying more on the learning from normal work now than we are from the learning teams, just because, like Will said, it's hard to get those people together for that amount of time. And it wasn't engaging as many people as we were hoping. So this was a way for us to get there. To give you an idea, one of the first learning teams I asked Will to lead, we pulled everybody into the main conference room, and my boss, our regional vice president, says, well, I'm going to come in and I'm going to kick this thing off. And we were a half hour in, and he's still talking. and I kind of signaled to Will, I says, do you want him out of here? And Will's like, yes. So I went and grabbed him. I says, oh, we got to leave. And we left, and then people really opened up. Isn't that correct, Will?
Mm-hmm, definitely.
So, I mean, those old habits die hard.
Oh, yeah.
And it's easy to revert back if we allow that to happen. So that's an ongoing struggle too, is to make sure that while we have to have policies and procedures to address the small amount of people, the vast amount of people, we want to keep those HOP principles in place so that we can gain their trust and get them involved. Because when I go over this with people, when I'm talking to them, I said, how willing are you to bring, information to us if we pull you and we write you up and then say, now tell us about the event?
Yep.
Right. So that's that whole learning and improving, right? Or blame and punish thing. So the leader's response matters a huge part of this, because again, I purposely was very cognizant of that when I was out on the floor with the people, and it's had a pretty good impact.
I have 3 ways I want to go with this, and I guess I'll go in order. Which is, early on you mentioned we're really pushing on this idea of accountability, and we have rules in place, but they're really to make sure that we can maybe find our person problems when they are there, and we understand want to learn about reality. So you mentioned sort of swinging too far, and then finding a better balance. Can you just talk to me more about that and how that worked and what you learned, and maybe even what you'd give advice if someone's going in that direction?
So, quite honestly, I don't know if I saw that happening. People above me did. There were a couple incidences where we were trying to apply the HOP principles when this truly was a people problem. It wasn't a process problem. And, some of the other people that went through the training took it as, well, we can never blame and punish people. And some of the production people in that training also said, well, you can't do that. We're using HOP now. And so I don't want to say we swung way too far the other way, but I think there were incidences where we probably had to be more cognizant about what falls in the scope of the HOP program and what falls into the other bucket.
Okay. That was leading me to my next question. There was a directive from the leadership team. Hey, we want to at least pilot this HOP thing, and maybe we want to roll it out more broadly. We want someone to try it. Was there any tension between what they thought they were going to get by this program and what they actually got? And what I mean go
ahead.
Yeah, I just give you a little more. Like, was it, hey, we want this to come in and lower TRIR, and you're now responding with, yeah, let me tell you about all the systems problems we have, and maybe we're getting a different recording than normal because people are more open to share. Like, how did that work?
The good thing about it is, as long as everything was going pretty even keel, between myself and Will, we had a lot of leeway about how this program was working. And again, what there are discussions about going too far the other way. There was one incident where we probably tried too hard to lean into the HOP principles, where this probably wasn't that application. It's not like they were saying the HOP program's bad. I think everybody's seeing the results of it. Will, have we went to what, 5 or 6 other Olympic divisions since us?
I think so.
Yeah. So it is spreading. Our Minneapolis divisions are more than willing to raise our hand when we want to trial something new. This is not the first program that we've trialed. And I think HOP was probably one of the biggest successes. But we do have other programs that we've absolutely raised our hands for. We want to be the innovators. So,
anything from your side, Will, that you witnessed, or?
Nothing specific is coming to mind. I think overall, we've been interested in learning, and it's easy. I think there is something too. It's easy when you're used to looking for system problems, sort of the other side of the coin, right? If you're used to looking for people problems, you're going to find them. And if you're used to looking for system problems, you're going to find them too, even if it's actually kind of a people problem. And maybe there's some weak and brittle systems in there that allowed that person problem to perpetuate. So I think, like most things, being able to see both sides of the coin is an interesting balance to take. Most of the time it is a system issue, and we're not setting people up the way they need to be set up, but you do end up with a couple individuals.
Yeah, I mean, we naturally as humans bias ourselves in one direction, and it sounds like historically maybe we were biasing ourselves that it's probably a people problem, and this has changed to it's probably a systems problem, but then we're going to naturally miss some things that may indicate it's the inverse. So you give a great example of changing the leadership walks and how they were executed. What other parts of your management system, be it audits or other things, now that we're taking this systems thinking approach, have shifted or changed? And maybe the answer is nothing yet. Maybe there is things that have evolved. It sounds like because you both are so sharp on the system side, you've definitely changed some things, but I'd love to hear what it's like.
So I would say the biggest thing I've noticed is our injury rates are coming down, but our near misses already this year alone, we've already doubled as many near misses as last year. So the fact I've got more near misses coming in tells me that this is successful, because if you are looking at a safety program and you're relying on your incidents, your accidents as your indicator of what's going on, that's got bigger problems because it's just not a big enough data set. So all these near misses are helping now to give me data that we can start attacking things we never really knew about. And some of the people are like, this has been here all the time. It's kind of like, it's kind of like if you want to look at a successful marriage and you're going to analyze all the divorced people, that's kind of how a safety programs that's not working right would work, right? We don't want to look at the failures. We want to look at the successes so that we can build that robustness into our safety program.
I totally agree with that. The other thing I would add is that at least in our industry, nobody's paying us for extra safety in the same way that nobody's paying us for extra quality.
Yep.
So safety, quality, and productivity all become factors of how we get work done. The same processes, they might be overlapping a little bit, but basically the same processes that make a quality product, make a safe product, and allow us to produce on a time schedule. So I think there's definitely been some shift towards understanding that these safety and quality and productivity are not different spheres. They're all the same thing. And the learning tools and the way we ask questions and the way we do investigations works for all of them. A quality failure hurts the material instead of hurting a person. It was still a failure of a process. It still cost us time and money and thought and a bunch of other stuff. So just understanding that those things are all tied together has helped the way that we look at how we're making decisions about how we set up lines and investigate our quality incidents and all of that kind of stuff too.
And has that made it more broadly into the mindset of your leadership teams? It has this thing that came in as a safety idea. Is it well accepted as maybe having a broader purpose?
I'm going to say I think so, but I don't know that it has the branding on it. I don't know that they're thinking about, oh, this is a HOP thing. But I have definitely seen, like from a quality perspective, as we're looking at our customer complaints that have come in and rejections that have come in, our management team is asking more questions and not accepting pat answers as easily as they have in the past. They're pushing back more and saying, hey, tell me more about this. What's going on? There's something not working here. So there's more of a thought towards, hey, there could be a system issue. It's not, well, the person forgot and they need more training. So there's more pushback on those kinds of things. Again, I don't know that our leadership has it branded in their brains as HOP, but they're still asking better questions, and that's a win.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think I've said this a bunch recently, but it doesn't need to be called HOP, right? It's just, if people equate it to an operating philosophy, you don't have to brand it. If you change the way that you perceive work, it doesn't limit it to just safety, right? And then naturally you're being more curious, and I really love that idea. So what's next, fellas? I mean, you're talking about your journey and the progress that's being made, and we've learned about it from your level and what it's done at the shop floor level and how leaders are hearing it and using it. But where does this go? Where do you continue to build with this?
In my mind, it's getting more people involved. Because I think Hop is integrated into both the way I do things and Will does things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's partially ingrained in other people's minds, but I think there's so much more to gain by getting a larger population to get this moving forward. One of the things that on our last Tuesday at 2 call they were talking about was managing Hop and a merger and things like that. Well, we just merged with another company and they've heard of Hop, but they're not doing anything with it. And I'm trying to find ways to help cross-pollinate that over to that side a little bit. But the merger happened in March, so it's still fairly new. But getting more people on board with it, I think, is the biggest thing. Getting more involvement from supervisors, managers, and the floor personnel.
Mm-hmm. And tying into that, I think that there's a big need to make it part of everyday work, make it part of normal life. This diffusion of innovation, getting to that 16-18% of people that have bought in, that starts making it normal and attainable for everybody else. Because if you just have one advocate or one champion, then if that person leaves or isn't there anymore, then all of your momentum is gone. So building it to a system that is just part of how we work, I think is really important. More people involved as part of that, and making it part of how we teach people how to do investigations, how we teach people how to look at their processes, new supervisors, new leaders, as people continue to come up and change positions. Like, how do we need to figure out good ways to get this built into their training and education as they take on new roles.
I hear that in two ways in what you said, Will, which is it's their training and education, but it's also the systems in which they're forced to operate in, right? If the way that we are teaching people not just what better questions are, but it's also how we prescribe investigations to be done, well, now it's sort of coming at it from both sides. And Robert, right. I think you made an interesting point. Cross-pollinating, getting the information out there. I am willing to wager that you all have done a lot of that pollinating so far. What has gone well, or what works well when you're bringing, hey, whether we call it Hop or not, this is what I need you to sort of understand that's going to be a little bit different?
I would say, again, when Bob taught Hop at our division and other divisions, there was a real emphasis on the learning teams. And again, at a local level, I think we realized quickly that the learning teams weren't going to be sufficient for what we need to do. And we were able to modify a little bit. I think a lot of our other divisions are kind of still stuck at learning teams as kind of, they equate Hop is learning teams. And their learning teams have a component, but if you leave it at that, I don't think we're going to be successful. I think we need to find different aspects of the program that we can make our own and try to use the most effective tools we can.
Yeah. I'll give you a magic wand for a second. If you could memory wipe everyone that has been taught Hop as Hop is good, and then you do learning teams, to change it to Hop is good, and then you operationally learn. And one of the ways you could do that is this bigger thing, but we actually think it's better if you do it in this littler way. Would you want to make that change? Would you want to change the equation to be not learning team focused, operational learning focused?
I think for our company, yes. Now, a a lot of the energy, it may not be, that might not work for them. I mean, both Will and I attended a TVA conference down in Chattanooga a few years ago, and that seems like Learning Teams is a right tool for them. I think for us, it's a tool, but it's not the main tool. And we're very cognizant of looking at all the different tools, either from Lean Six Sigma, HOP, it doesn't matter. And we are trying to meld them into something that makes sense for our company.
I love that point. I think it's a really great that there's no one size fits all, right? That's sort of the answer here, right? Maybe for us, we had to learn that this wasn't the right equation, but for other people it might be. And you have to critically assess. I think so often we're used to buying something off the shelf. Okay, I'm buying the HOP and Learning Teams package, and then I go and I bring it home and I put the package out there. And what we want to do is, yes, you might learn it in this mechanism, and then you have to critically assess, is this going to fit in the way that my world operates, the way that my company, the way that my site operates, and then be willing to mold it to what you need it to be. And that's a great point. Will, anything on your end to add there?
Yeah, I really like that point. It's the if you watch how we teach music or sports or martial arts or anything like that, it's very much you do it this way and then you do it this way, and then okay, now go play with it. And I think as a community, we're probably going to need to figure out how to get people over that hump. That this isn't just a 1, 2, 3, follow the painted steps on the floor to learn how to dance. At some point, you just have to start moving with the music that's there. And that's it's a different way of thinking. It's a different mindset for people. So that's going to take some work. The other thing I was thinking about as we're looking at how do we expand this to multiple divisions and just get more people on board. From what I've seen, every time I've talked to our floor operators or the people that are close to the work and rolled out the 5 HOP principles, it was I don't even know if it was a sell. They're just like, yep, got it. Totally understand. Not a push at all. And the higher up, the more removed from the day-to-day work that people are, the bigger mindset shift this is. So I think the focus on teaching leadership is a big piece of this, because usually, again, what I've seen when you roll this out to people that are at the pointy end of the stick, they're on board.
Yep. Sky is blue.
It might be that's an interesting way to put it, but there's no pushback.
We're hearing this more and more. You've drawn a lot of connections between quality and safety in terms of what HOP does. My experience has been that we are being asked to speak at quality-based events more and more as well. Knowing your organization being so Lean Six Sigma centric, is it helpful when you're trying to get HOP through to people to connect it back to that Lean Six Sigma world? Does that make it more palatable? Does it make it easier? Because I think it's something that we're going to see very rapidly happen in this space is, well, when I really understand HOP, I see exactly how it fits into the lean world. And that's exciting for people because it's always great to think about new ways to innovate something you really are attached to.
I think it can. I'm gonna throw in a little bit of lean thought here. One of the things that I have noticed is that there have been a number of companies over the last, call it 20 or so years, that have heard about this lean stuff coming out of Toyota and all the good stuff that Toyota was doing, and looked at it and said, oh, all we need to do is set up a Kaizen events and a Kanban board and just copy the tools, and then our shop will run perfectly. And it doesn't work.
Yep.
It basically never works.
You just basically said, all we have to do is do Learning Teams and we're doing HOP. That's what I just heard you say that in what you said.
Same thing.
Yep.
Right. 100%. Because the core of it is actually the thought process behind it. right? The how do you ask questions and how do you engage learning and how do you get people to think critically about their systems and address things like that. So if you are working with a new company and trying to roll this out and Lean is management objective and a paper tiger and a set of forms that they're following, but they're not actually learning, they're not engaging, they're not building that kind of curious question asking organization, then it might actually take you in the wrong direction. Because then they'll be like, oh, all we have to do is the things that we already do. It's like, no, I need you to think about it.
Yeah.
But if it's a curious, learning driven organization already, then tying it together might make a lot of sense and say, hey, this is, this safety incident and this quality incident, they're really not that different. Something in the process failed. We missed a check somewhere. We didn't do a thing we needed to do. Nobody got alerted. We had a single point failure. All of, again, we had damaged material instead of hurting a person, but it's kind of the same process failure. If a company is already kind of thinking in that mode and their quality investigations are process focused and insightful, then I think it's a very easy connection.
I again, that's super helpful and something I think can be amplified. And I think there will be more questions in the next 6, 12, 18 months that are really looking at both lean and or at least just even quality and safety, but also, specifically lean and hop is coming more and more being brought to us as we go about this. I mean, you all have been incredibly helpful. Any parting words that you'd like to share before we wrap this thing up?
I mean,
Stay curious.
Yeah. So
that's really what I got.
Biggest thing, I tell all of the people in my new hire orientations is that people are as safe as they think they need to be without being overly safe in order to get the job done. Mm-hmm. I also say there's people out on the floor that are going to take risks I'm not willing to take. And understanding that and understanding that blue line of what's really going on has been important.
I love that. That's awesome. And Will, I think I heard you say, stay curious. Is that what it was?
Yep. Stay curious. Keep asking questions. Again, try to one of my favorite parts of all of the HOP training is keep asking questions until you could see yourself making the same choices. If you still can't see yourself making those choices, you probably don't understand the context well enough yet. Even if you would make a different decision, you have to get to a point where you're like, okay, I see how you got there. That tracks. Just keep asking.
That's awesome. Well, thank you both for joining, and we appreciate the time.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, that's it.
Yep, another one in the books. We did it.
If you want to send us any of your thoughts, actually fling us any of your thoughts, you can do so at the website www.hoppodcast.com.
That's HOPPODCAST.com.
It's still such a stupid name.
It's such a stupid name. We look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening.